Apologies for that. If you're just joining us, you're listening to African Voices platform, a space where we explore African stories, not only as a art, but a source of knowledge, memory, and critical reflection. And I've been in the studio with two incredible human beings I've met on this planet. Dr. Oladipo Agboluaje and Mojisola Kareem. Thank you so much for your patience with me. And I'm just going to go through that first question again. In this your work, The Crown of Blood, history doesn't feel like a background contest. It feels like something that is shaping what can happen in the story. Was that a conscious artistic decision to treat history as an active rather than a descriptive?
Yes, very much so. I very much like writing stories that where the historical backdrop serves is integral to the way the characters behave. The geography of the place, the mood, the feeling, the sensibilities of that place inform the characters. So I very much like writing from a point of using history as an active backdrop. So the thing is, you're almost writing in a way twice. Once, the first is trying to be true to the historical period, and the second is to speak to a contemporary audience. So that's what I like doing. I love using that, and I love looking for the equivalences between the contemporary and the historical period that I'm writing out of, because as people, we are shaped by history. We are shaped, and our culture is shaped by history. So I'm very much interested in the similarities and differences, of the past and the present, and those links, and the kind of conversations that take place between the contemporary and the past. So it's something I think as a writer, it's one of the things that define my work that's set in historical context. It's something I very much like doing here.
Well, that's quite interesting, writing as a form of cultural positioning. And if I ask a follow-up question from that, when you are working with Yoruba political history, what responsibility do you feel towards those history and towards the community they come from?
I feel as a writer, my job is to tell the truth. I always say to people, I'm not an ambassador. Ambassadors, they say, I think the joke, ambassadors are those who lie for their country. I'm not an ambassador. I'm not a public relations person. My job is to reveal the truth of our people. I think Chinua Achebe said it once, where he said, the job is to look for where the rain first began to beat us. So it's always about telling the truth. Whether people like it or not, it's up to them. But my primary job is to look at history, look at our contemporary situation. If human beings are actors, we shape history.
Yeah.
We shape the events that occurred in the past. We shape the events now. Therefore, my job is to look at the reality of how history has shaped our contemporary realities. So that's my primary job. It's to tell the truth. Just like a researcher, an academic researcher will go and do research. If there shouldn't be political bias.
Yeah, that's correct.
You should look at the evidence, and evaluate it as it is without trying to impinge on it. Art can be a bit different in that you can take a few liberties, but those liberties have to be taken from a point of view of fact. That's where it takes, and then people go, well, that's what you think about it, but the truth of the event, of the has to be portrayed, and it has to be portrayed truthfully.
Wow, that's That's a very difficult job to take on. How do you deal with backlash then?
Well, I think like a lot of Yoruba people are very sarcastic, so if people come at me, I always have something to say back to them.
I love that. You always have something to say back. Yeah, Mojisola, let me ask you this question. When you receive a script carrying that kind of historical and political weight or philosophical weight, how do you begin translating worldview into physical, emotional, and special experience on stage?
I think for me, it's exactly the same as what drives the writer, and that is this idea that you have to see yourself as a truth teller. You're there to tell the truth. You're there to ensure that nothing is muddled. You have to present that world in a way that feels as close to what the writer is trying to represent. For me, the text is paramount. I look to that text to guide me in terms of what that world is. And from the very moment that I make a decision on which writer to commission or collaborate with on a particular project, I take all of that into account. I know that I can only give the job to somebody that I know is going to deliver in line with the expectations of the company. And the expectations really in terms of telling that truth and having that kind of authentic way of engaging with that material. So the first conversation that Oladipo and I had about this project is we're not telling this story for a certain audience. We're telling the story as truthfully as possible, and that involves leaning into all of the cultural aspects and all of the tradition. We don't water down anything for anybody. If somebody needs to sing in Yoruba, they sing in Yoruba. If somebody needs to speak Yoruba line in a particular context, they speak in Yoruba. We're not making a piece of work. So for example, if you go to a Chinese restaurant in this country or you go to an Indian restaurant, the food that they make is for a British audience. They've watered some stuff down in order to ensure that it's either not too hot for us or not too spicy.
Yes.
You see what I mean? Meanwhile, if you go to India, the same food, when they serve it to you, it's just completely different.
Absolutely.
So for me, and one of the conversations that Oladipo and I had is, look, we're making this work as though we're making this work for the audience that would appreciate that this is the truth of what would happen and how that world operates. And because the Yoruba world is very spiritual, it's really important to get a sense of that right.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. Let me go back to you with this. The play is largely in English language, and yet the worldview is deeply Yoruba, and you mentioned to the spirituality aspect of Yoruba culture. What happens to the meaning in that translation? What is transformed? What refused to be fully carried by language alone?
So that really goes to the vast majority of the process of making this piece of work. So ensuring that a lot of the collaborators are people that are Yoruba, that is very key. But not only that they bring a lot of cultural aspect to it. So at the start of the research and development of this piece, we had a real Babalawo in the room.
Oh.
Somebody that is a practicing Babalawo.
Okay, yes. That sounds interesting now.
So we're not trying to teach somebody how to do Oriki. We have somebody that's been trained with the Babas in Nigeria on Oriki, on Ifa. So it's really also about bringing the right people on board to tell this story, people who have the expertise around how this world sits. The first draft, for example, had elements of it that in that research and development, by bringing the right people into the room, we quickly realized that, oh, actually that setup wouldn't be like that. And the writer took all of that information on board. So it's also about really bringing the right people into the room that understand the material. And obviously, we also have to work collaboratively with people, actors or performers who are not necessarily Yorubas. And it's how we take them on that journey by supporting them with having people around them who know that world very clearly. Because I'm a strong Yoruba woman, and I've been brought up in that culture. Actually, it's not such a difficult ask. The ask now is, like you said, at what point are there things that would not kind of translate? And how do you manage that? So for example, some of the challenges we have in rehearsals is there are words that are in English that you cannot really translate them into Yoruba. So yesterday, for example, an actor was saying to me, this word, me saying blacksmith, actually, I would rather have the Yoruba word. And it's correct. Because the Yoruba word, agbede, sits, you say it. And even something jumps out of your body.
That's true.
So, and that is the approach that we cannot take towards everything. If it makes sense for us to revisit the original language because it tells the story better, what the actor needs to do is just ensure that there are gestures that sit with that language that allows an audience that doesn't speak. We don't need to say it in Yoruba and then say it in English. We avoid that at all costs. If we want to say it in Yoruba, we say it in Yoruba and we invest in it. We invest in the intention of what that thing is. As I'm sitting in front of you and I'm saying Yoruba, the way that I am saying it, you don't even need to understand what I'm saying to understand that there's a conversation that I'm having with somebody and I want that person to kind of go on a journey with me to understand what I'm saying. Do you see what I mean?
That's an incredible level of detail that you put into this. Oh my God, when we say these things, we just think it's very walk in the park. It's not a walk in the park at all. For you as a writer, how does that feel?
Oh no, I love the research aspect of writing. I love, trying to learn as much as possible, of the culture and the history. I love being in workshops and having experts come and talk and comment, on a draft and saying that wouldn't work in this environment or in this situation, that could never happen. It's a challenge. But it's also, as writing, a lot of writing is about problem solving.
That's true.
A lot of writing is about problem solving. So you're thinking, well, if it doesn't work in this context, then this is a very important moment for this character emotionally. How do I make it work? And what's the knock-on effect further on in the draft? So it's why we don't say we write a first draft. We say we develop a draft, because that's what it is. It's development. And theatre, much as theatre is a writer's medium, actually primarily theatre is a collaborative medium. Also, it's not just words and dialogue. It's movement. It's singing. It's song. African theatre, if one could generalize, is seen as a total theatre. It's not just dialogue and people talking to each other. It's music. It's performance. It's performance. So even if a word is said in Yoruba, the way it is enacted, it's about understanding that meaning. Because we're talking not just of words, but concepts. And there are certain concepts, that link between language and culture and history is to do with concepts and how people see the world.
That's true.
So definitely, yes, there are words that are untranslatable from in Yoruba and in English, but the effect on the characters can be visualized.
Yeah.
You see, so that is how we create theatre. That's how we create, and that's the process that I love more than anything else. It is that collaborative process, having experts in the room, having actors in the room commenting and giving feedback, because it's a live medium and it has to feel alive. It has to feel truthful, and truthfulness is not just about recording events as it happens. No, it's also about how the actors embody the truths.
Wow.
You know, if they can't embody it, if they don't get it, it's very difficult for them to translate it to an audience, even if it's in English, even if it's even if you know the natural way it's conveyed through language is through English. It will still be very difficult if they cannot embody it.
Wow. What I'm getting from you is that this is not just about collaboration at the surface level. It's about not just about role. It's about way of knowing. It's about writing, directing, movements. And so my question to both of you is, what does genuine collaboration looks like in practice when cultural material itself need to be handled carefully?
That's a really good question. I think it's about that genuine collaboration. It's about not having this kind of holding on to something too tight to the point that you cannot understand other people's input. And this is one of the reasons why someone like Oladipo and I have collaborated for years, because as a writer, he's the best collaborator that I've ever worked with. He's not, I'm trying to find the word, he's not precious about his material. He's very open to having a conversation about where it goes, how it transforms. And it's not many people that can do that. So having other people's input into the material, because this is, like Oladipo rightly said, because this is total theatre, it's not just about the writing. It's not just about movement. It's not just about dance. It's about, and all of these people are all different people that bring ideas. Even myself as a director, I know some songs, but I don't know everything. So you have people on board. So I have a vision of, actually, you know what? This Oba, how do they do this Oba's Oriki? What is the praising for this type of Oba? But even you as a director, even as a writer, you may not know all of those Orikis. It's having other people come on board and go, actually, this is how they do the Oriki of the Oba. And the writer being able to go, actually, you know what? That is precious information. I'm happy to incorporate that. So in a way, but it's also, all these collaborators also not being precious about their material. We're all feeding into this thing. And I think that is also a very rare process. So we had 2 moments of 2 weeks of research and development into this bit. This is work that this is a piece of writing that Oladipo has been working on for probably over almost 2 years was when we first had the conversation about this. So the thing to understand as well is when we talk about this collaborative process, it's not just a question of just sitting down and writing something. It's finding all of the right people that would bring the knowledge that allows that thing to come alive.
Wow. What do you have to add to that, Oladipo?
Well, yes, totally everything what you said. But also because, I mean, personally, I studied theatre and it had always been as a collaborative thing. As what you said, this is not we've actually worked, on other projects before, so we almost have a shorthand of knowing how we work, and so that process that she spoke about for me is the ideal. That's the ideal process. Having bodies in the room, having ideas, having concepts. For instance, when we first worked on this project, she said to me, "Don't just write 2 scenes. Don't bring a first draft to the workshop. Don't bring a first draft. And normally they say, oh no, I want to write it so that I can see how it works. I said no. So I didn't. I brought only 2 drafts, and we spent the whole week just working through, listening. A lot of collaboration is about listening, because it's about having respect for every other person in the room and not thinking that you are better than everybody else. And the way in which you work, even as a director, normally the director is the one who runs the room and people take guidance and direction. Where do I stand? Where do I do it? But what you said to them, look, no, we are all creatives in this space. We are all creatives. So we all, so everybody's opinion is valued. Everyone's opinion is valued. So that's what I value as well. You know, I love working with actors. I love, I guess, as I said, Bridget and I have collaborated before, and we had a great time. The first time when we did Here's What She Said to Me. And I was really happy when she says, okay, come, let's do this other project. Because for me, this is what theatre is about. This is what it is about. It is about having people in the room coming together and creating work.
Wow. That's really incredible. There's a risk in theatre that culture become a aesthetic reference rather than a source of meaning. How do you ensure that Yoruba history, geography, and philosophy function as a cultural wealth, not just visual or stylish texture?
But I think when you think of a drama, it's all about somebody actively trying to achieve a goal. And if we take a play like Crown of Blood, for instance, it is about a man and his wife who actively seek the throne, even though the obstacles against them seem insurmountable, culturally, politically, and so on. And so when you're creating that drama of this character trying to achieve his aim, the obstacles that we place in his way are cultural and traditional. So, for instance, if you're not born of a lineage of the royal families, how can you ascend to the throne?
No way.
The Oyome say the King's Council will not even look at you. You see, so that's part of the culture. That is, and the Oyomes exist even till today.
That's true.
So that's part of the culture. So I don't say, because it's Macbeth, it can't work this way because he needs to become king. He needs to become king. Okay, what I'll do is I'll make him a prince instead. And I said to myself, well, no, because I also want to look at the class representation in society. If he's a prince, then it just stays at the level of royalties fighting each other. How do I talk about the rest of the community and the society? Do I just make them side characters, or do I actually also put them at the center of the drama? So again, like I said, these are obstacles, these are challenges for a writer that the writer has to overcome, and that's where a writer's creativity comes in. But it's not to deviate from the culture. It's not to deviate from the culture. It's to say, okay, if this is the obstacle, that is it. Now, how does he overcome that within the cultural context of that society? And so anybody who knows about Yoruba history, and let's not forget that a lot of the Yoruba history that was written down, codified, quite a large amount of it was written also by Europeans as well, by non-Nigerians. A person like Ulibaya, who wrote down a lot of the Yoruba myths and stories, comes to mind. So so for me, it's that there'll be a lot of people who have knowledge in the audience that will know about these things. Or how did that know? How could that happen? That did not happen in the, So imagine you're rocking up after a show and everybody's congratulating. My boy, well done. That was very interesting. Then one white man goes, excuse me, yes, you said the Oyomesi were a council of 5. Well, they were 6 or they were 7. You're like, oh, were they? And then you realize, I've been found out. And then all of a sudden, so but you know what? You see what I'm saying? Yes. So that is why, as I said, there's a creative aspect to the drama, but it is merging it with the actual reality of the society that you're writing about. And I also believe that one of the reasons that helps is always bearing in mind that I think writers and creators must, yes, we want to write for anybody who walks through the door, but you should have a sense of an ideal audience member in your head. And that person will, in a story like this, comes from your community. This stops you from over-explaining, because sometimes some people want to create work and say it's universal, but it's not. In universal, like how? Universal by explaining concepts and ideas, like it's an anthropological text rather than a dramatic text, because you want the non-Africans in the audience to understand it, or just doing it as a pure drama, and then let people don't understand certain aspects of it, it's fine. But what you don't want to do is to bog down a drama in footnotes, trying to explain things. We are people, we don't have to explain ourselves to anybody. We tell stories the way everybody else should tell their stories. When I go into a play, to a theatre where I see, let's say, which is meant for a British or a white audience, you don't see them explaining things.
Yeah.
They expect that their audiences will come with a certain amount of knowledge to understand what's going on. That's how I write. That's how I've always written. I've never written to explain myself. I don't, because I'm a dramatist. I don't see the need to explain myself. What I need to do is to create a dramatic text and let the story speak for itself. Yes.
That's quite interesting. I'll come to Mojisola now. Do you feel that British theatre space are now more open to engaging African knowledge system on their own term? Or do artists still have to translate themselves to fit institutional expectation?
It's a very fascinating question. And my take on it is that it's really down to you, the individual, the artist. If you make work on the basis of other people validating you, then you've set yourself already a challenge that you're not going to win. For me, it's about making the work. I'm not interested in what you review it as. I'm not interested in whether you feel that that is the work that you want to put through your door. That's up to you. Somebody will be interested in that work if that work is well thought through, developed in the value of the excellence that operates within that community. If you ensure that you stay true to yourself as an artist and you make sure that the collaborators that you bring on board stay true to the work, then you don't have to think about who takes the work, where the work goes. Institutions would always have ideas about what they think their audiences want. And sometimes they are not prepared to look beyond that. It's our job to open their eyes. So when we brought Death and the King's Horseman, it's quite clear that a lot of theatres are probably not ready for that type of work. Again, audiences saying things like, oh, I didn't get that, I didn't understand that. But then again, like Oladipo rightly said, they don't have to understand everything. I don't go to the theatre to go and watch opera and expect they're even singing in Italian. What I understand, I understand. What I value, I value. That doesn't stop me attending. And that doesn't stop me appreciating the work. I think, so in answer to your question, what will come to you will come to you. All you need to do is just make the work as it fits and it suits within your own philosophy for yourself about life generally. Just be true to yourself. That you can't do anything more than that. My philosophy is, don't try to bend to somebody else's will.
Don't try to bend.
Don't try to bend to somebody else's will. And even in terms of the collaboration that Oladipo and I have had, it's always been on this basis of, we're not thinking about the work has to be made for this type of audience. We need to make the work, and we need to believe in that work and stay true to that work.
Wow. And I love something that you said. What will come to you will find its way to you.
It will.
Anyhow, it's going to happen. We're coming to the end gradually now, and I'm going to ask this one final question. For young Black writers, director, or creative listening this morning, what does this collaboration say about how we can hold our history with seriousness while still taking creative risk?
Well, I think one thing I like about young people is that they believe, still at that stage where they believe anything is possible. And that's one thing that they must always hold on to. I think, alluding to your question, it's always good to find collaborators, the right kind of collaborators. It's very difficult to do things on your own. And you know what they say if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to, I don't know what the other...
Go far.
Go far.
Yeah, walk with others.
Walk with others. So that's the first thing I would say. It's always going to be difficult when people, because sometimes through the process, particularly when you're working with mainstream venues at times, they may want you to create work that your audience, that their audiences, will understand. And that might come into conflict with the kind of cultural work that you want to create. And I would always argue, stick to your guns.
Stick to your guns.
Yes, it's happened to me. I've experienced it before. And I nearly capitulated. And then at the last minute I said, no, I will not. And fortunately, because of that, that work was one of the most successful plays that I ever created. What the idea is to put it in front of the audience and let the audience decide. And I think, and when I say stick to your guns, I also mean about being strategic. Because at the end goal is the audience seeing it and giving it that validation. Theatres can be conservative at times, particularly now in these straitened times. But one must not underestimate the fact that they crave something new. And if you believe that you have something new, you've got to find a way of putting it in front of that audience and getting past all the gatekeepers. And that starts from believing in yourself, but also having collaborators. You support each other and you push through. That's what I believe. I also think that for a lot of young people, one of the first things they must do as well is research. Do their research. Do not take their history for granted. Don't say, my father told me this, my mother told me that. That's a great starting point. Or you saw a video on YouTube or so. Read. Go do that research. Talk to people. Talk to experts. Immerse yourself in that world, in that culture. So that you, at least, whatever you do with it as a creative, it comes from a background of having done a lot of the work that is necessary. Read the plays, read novels, not just plays and articles in history books. There are novels, documentaries about our culture and our history. And fortunately, in this age of the internet, a lot of that is free and online. So immerse yourself into different points of views of a same because that's of a same, let's say, event, because that's where you will get the conflict and all the kind of dramatic aspects that you would need to tell the story.
Wow. Thank you so much, both of you. And as we come to the end of this conversation, what I've stayed with me is the reminder that creative work can be more than storytelling. And that's what I'm getting from both of you. It is way more than storytelling. It can be a way of thinking, it can be a way of remembering, and it can even be a way of relating with one another. And we've been talking this morning about history not just as something finished. There's this temptation to think history is finished. Yeah, it has happened, it's the past. But it's something that is active. About culture, not as a decoration, but as a source of knowledge. And I think I've learned so much from both of you that will stay with me forever in my career, even as an academic, that it's going to stay with me. And I think what the Crown of Blood seems to invite us to do is to take African history and philosophy seriously, not as things that need constant explanation. And you keep saying that you don't have to explain everything. Sometimes in the process of explaining, you even over-explain and lose credibility in that process. And I just want to thank you both, Oladipo Agboluaje and Mojisola Kareem, for such generous and thoughtful conversation that you've had with me this morning on African Voice platform. And you remind us that theatre is still the best. It's still the best. And I'm really glad that my director has promised me to get me a ticket to see it. So I'm looking forward to coming to Crucible between the 3rd and the 7th of February to watch The Crown of Play. Thank you so much. A massive shout out to my community lead, Enoch, and to my director, Chinwe. Thank you so much. And it's been a blessing speaking to you both this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day and keep listening to African Voices platform. Thank you.